for proper attribution, I believe most all of those photos are Peter Cunningham's, or all of them. So thank you, Peter, for that. Beautiful. Well, let's go ahead and step into our program. Again, we have three guests today who will speak and share their heart, share their thoughts about Jishu. And we'll begin with Barbara McKay. Barbara, from Florida, welcome, if that's still where you are.
Yes, right now. Yeah, so there was a board meeting. Once a month, there was a board meeting in Grayston, and they were open. And probably 5 to 8 other people will be hanging out around the doorway. So if there's a board meeting, there's Bernie doing upaya, that's for sure. A novice monk had been requested to make a presentation to have a bookstore because we had many books. We were doing something called Lectio Divina for the Lotus Sutra, Heart Sutra, Path of Purification, the Milarepa, Dogen, and the Bible. So this novice monk made the presentation and it got knocked down immediately. We don't need it. So I stood up and said, that's ridiculous. We have all these books we're supposed to be reading. And we have these courses, Hinayana, Mahayana Buddhism. So they said, okay, you do it. And they gave me the cash box. The meeting finished. Sandra Holmes walks up to me and she says, I can help you with that. So we went downstairs at Grayston, and within 15 minutes, she created on paper the production, management, and marketing for this bookstore. This woman was a PhD, I think, in microbiology, was a researcher at Sloan Kettering. She was absolutely brilliant. Now, you know, Bernie would make mandalas. Jishu would color in the mandala like a Tibetan sandcastle. That's what I remember about Jishu. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And Adam, I see you up in the upper right-hand corner. Adam Fetter's here. Thanks for being here, Adam. And
it's good to be here. Hi, everyone. So, one of my favorite songs by the Grateful Dead goes, "That's right, the women are smarter, that's right, the women are smarter, that's right, the women are smarter, the women are smarter, that's right, that's right." So I used to sing that, and Jishu used to laugh. Jishu, as it turned out, was my preceptor, and her death and her life is a part of me. I received the name Kataiji Angyo, and it's signed Bernie/Jishu on my Raksu, because Jishu died before Jukai. And I came to Grayston in 1989. I was a student of Nancy Baker's, Mujo Roshi's, at Sarah Lawrence. And she sent me to go meet Bernie. And on that first evening at 5 Ashburton, I met Jishu. And that was to be the beginning of, for me, of my Zen practice. Formative. Jishu was like a cool older aunt, whisking around in her robes and then quickly getting changed into dungarees and running down to Grayston Family Inn, which hadn't yet opened. This was 1989. Her laugh, that last picture, Peter, of her is so classic. the way she stood up to Bernie. She wasn't yet sensei in 1989. And that was my introduction to Zazen, was Jishu transmitted that to me. I was in the basement of 5 Ashburton. I can still smell Shep, the dog with the dreadlocks, a little bit of cat poop off to the side, learning this wondrous and awesome practice. Jishu was the model of a priest that I never became. I think because my teacher, Mujo, was a lay teacher. So my path, I never became a priest. But after college, I worked at St. Joseph's Hospital in Yonkers as a caseworker with adults, mentally ill adults who lived in the community. And after a few months, it was the spring, I was going every Sunday for sitting and for service. I guess it was Saturday in those days. And Jishu and I were talking about gardening and building a raised bed garden. And that was at 5 Ashburton. Well, 6 months later, I've left the hospital where I was working. I've come on board to work at Grayston, building the Grayston Community Garden Project, very much supported by and inspired by Jishu. I remember, I've told this story before in the context of Bernie, but when we moved into Park Avenue, there was, the Zendo was set up, and there was sitting every morning. And I used to sit there with Jishu in the morning and meet her in her office early and light the incense and learn how to do service. And one day, these crates arrived from Japan with a manjushri, another kanon. Miraculously, they arrived. They've been sent as a gift for the House of One People. And kind of classic Bernie, he was so relaxed about it. And he just let us open the packages. And I remember being with Jishu as we opened up this beautiful golden manjushri and took it out of the box and put it on the altar together. I don't know, maybe I think it ended up in the founder's room. I don't know where it is now. She was just, in my mind, so much a part of those early years at Grayston, and her commitment to the work of Grayston Family Inn and making that happen. I remember sitting in a meeting with her because we were looking to open another daycare center having to do with the Y, working with the local Y. And I was in a meeting with her, and we began the work of a grant proposal, sitting there. And she was so knowledgeable at this point and so diligent and so focused. And for in those days, dreamy and energetic and somewhat ADHD, I just had no patience for the paperwork of all of this business. And it became a koan to sit here and work at Grayston and how to reconcile Zen and the art of grant writing. Because there was a lot of that. And she was really good at it and really patient and stayed in that building, long into the night when things had to get done. And somewhere along the way, long before Jukai, I did the first couple of rounds of How to Raise an Ox with her and really opened to myself and to her. In this small group, we would meet and share. And going in for interview with her was always wonderful. She really, really, really was a support to me. I was 21 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. It took me a while to realize nobody else did either. I've had in this Sangha, amazing women, powerful women teachers. Jishu and Eve and Mujo Baker and so many. I think of the Shrivers from those days and Anne Krauss and Merle Pollock and then her love of Pamsula. Here it was like, what was this place? There were grants, there was all of this low frequency work constantly being done. Applications and city ordinance things that were being created, but they weren't, the daily work of it was quiet and steady. And at the heart of it was the Zendo that began the day. Sometimes we'd return to it at lunch, and then certainly on the weekends. But in the side room was the Pamsula room. And together with Eugenia and others, that's like a place I really remember Jishu being happy and having a vision of something beautiful and useful and recreative. Just before this meeting, I dug up my Pamsula vest, and I'm happy to say it doesn't have any holes in it, so I'll start wearing it after this meeting. Anyway, thank you for letting me have these words. It's wonderful to think of Jishu and the impact that she has made. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I really appreciated that. Wonderful, wonderful. Peter Cuckoo Cunningham. I've got you muted, so you're going to need to unmute yourself.
Got it.
There you go.
Okay, well, this is actually I'm accidentally in council practice not having rehearsed the thing I'm going to say, so see how it goes. I'm glad that Adam gave me a bone. I'm going to pick a bone with you, Adam. So your let's see, your Roxy was signed by Bernie Jishu / Jishu, right? I was always curious how that was written. But maybe I've spoken or others have spoken about it before, but Bernie and Jishu, when they really got rolling, they took a common name. They called themselves, not Bernie and not Jishu, they called themselves Bernie Jishu. And when Bernie talked about that, he would talk about being addicted to his own ego. which I at first found a little shocking, but it was obviously true. And his relationship, the way I saw his relationship with Jishu, was as a kind of therapy or as a cure for his addiction to himself. And as part of that, they took that name, Bernie Jishu. Anyway, so Adam, I think it wasn't necessarily that the order of who died when, but that was their name. Yeah, they were before personal pronouns. They became a they before it became fashionable. What am I going to say? Oh yes. So I'm doing this morning. I wrote something about this unconnected, which is I'm doing a book with pairs of pictures, one on top of another. It's a pair, and I needed to write an introduction to it. And I thought about planets. There's planets I remember from my astronomy that revolve. No, what's the word? They don't revolve. They circle around each other. They have an equal amount of gravity, so they spin like this. So I went to Claude actually and asked it what the name of that was, and they said scientists call it a binary system. So thank goodness I got the opening sentence from my introduction. But in this discussion now, I'm thinking that Bernie and Jishu were a binary system revolving around one another. I just thought this. So I looked it up. I looked up further, and they said actually all the moon and the Earth are actually a binary system. It's just that the Earth is so much bigger that you don't even see that. You don't see it as a coupling. You just see it. It's a very minor adjustment, but in certain ways, the Earth revolves around the moon. So I'm imagining that it's like that with people too. Like Bernie did have a big ego, and they did. So they were, any relationship that sees itself like that, and I suppose we all see our relationships like that in some way. They the bigger ego does tend to be the one you see, or is pulling gravity a little bit more, and they definitely struggled with that. And now I'm thinking that one reason Jishu fell in love with Pamsula and other things as well so heavily was it made her gravity in that relationship equally strong. They were kind of both in love with and active with different things, and that period of her life, you're right, Adam, brought out the very best in Jishu, and it was a beautiful thing to watch. And that Bernie Jishu thing is a good lesson for us all. I think it's something that is just good to remember in all of our relationships. The other thing that occurred to me to mention was her funeral. I don't know who you were, Dyken, you were at that funeral, right? And Ken was, and Adam, did you meet you? Chris was. It was really something. It was really something. I don't really think we'll see a thing like that again in Western Zen practice. And maybe another time. I really have a lot of pictures from that, and maybe another time we can have one of these sessions and really look at that funeral more carefully. I have Ken picking with these tongs, right, Ken? Picking the ashes out of the cremation, and we put them in an urn, and it was really wild. And we did the ceremonies around her body, which was laid out in a cardboard box. It was really wild. That would be an interesting thing to do. And maybe the last thing I'll say is her students, like, Adam and Ken and Dyken, right? And their students were so devoted to her and such a special group. Who else was in that group? Can you help me with that? And then I'll sign off. And tell me about that group, somebody.
Thanks, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, we have quite a bit of time. If you'd like to share a little bit, and then I don't know, after doing so, perhaps we could open it up a little bit.
I can, thank you. This is, kind of wonderful, moving. I'm grateful to people who shared. Thank you. I'm sort of, I'll say, I want to share my piece of the Bernie Jishu story. But there's a worry coming up for me, 27 years, and we got, what are we at, 17 people here today. How much longer are we going to be able to keep Jishu's memory alive? Founders Room is gone. In the vagaries of Greyston history, there was a question about where something was. Dyken may remember where it was. Dyken and Paco and I salvaged as much as we could, and I have Jishu's ashes sitting on my dresser, and I have got to find something, some place for them to be. I worry about Jishu being forgotten. I don't think the solution of scattering the ashes right now is a good solution. So I worry how we're going to keep the memory alive. Peter, I want to say yes, we're going to do that next year for the memorial. We're going to do the funeral. And we'll try to get as many people back who were there in Santa Fe for the funeral. I think it sounds like a wonderful memorial to me. Bernie Jishu, I guess Adam, your Chikai thing was at Villanova a couple of months after Jishu passed. It was also Jishu died during the middle of my Shuso period. And so Bernie did the Shuso Hosen ceremony there. I don't think there was any document. I just, did the ceremony thing. But I did the Denkai about 6 months later at the year opening retreat at Litchfield that January. And he signed that one, Bernie Jishu, no slash. The morning after the funeral, I had gone in I went in to talk to Bernie. And I said to him, if he ever felt that I was ready to be a teacher, would he give me transmission from Jishu? So that her lineage would continue. I was her senior student. And he agreed to that. I mean, he didn't agree. He didn't say, yes, I'm going to make you a teacher. But he said, yeah, it's like, if ever, kind of thing. And then he made me a Dharma holder at Litchfield too. And somewhere over the course of the years, other seniors, students, successors of his, convinced him that giving transmission from Jishu was a bad idea. that it would set a bad precedent. People running around claiming they'd gotten transmission from dead teachers. And how are you going to verify it and all that kind of stuff. So he didn't. And he gave me, he just gave me transmission from him eventually, which is, wonderful, and Bernie's wonderful, but Jishu has no successors. Uh, uh, so this, it's, and yet she is really, this, you guys captured some of that flavor of that period, She really was the co-founder of the Zen Peacemakers and all this stuff. And she died much too soon. And Bernie did a lot of work to try to become Bernie Jishu on his own, which was a big challenge for him because he had depended on Jishu to be the Jishu part of the Bernie Jishu and bring the softness to relationships and things like that. And he worked really hard at it. But there was pieces of Jishu that never, that got lost. That there are pieces of her vision for what peacemaking was going to be and what peacemaker practice was going to be, which was, very different from anything that existed. And she didn't have a chance with him to bring that to life. So it's good. I'm grateful for all of us coming together to remember her. I hope we can find a way to continue this and to find a way actually to figure out how the people who don't know Jishu are going to continue that. And soon we're going to have to do that with Bernie too. We can't just remember, depend on the people who were alive during the American Revolution to tell the stories, We're getting old. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. You haven't aged a day since I've met you. Looking good. Daikin, forgive me, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you've been invoked a couple of times. Would you like to share? I sent you a chat, and I don't know if you saw it, but we've got time if you'd like to.
Yes, you may call on me. So my connection with this all began with Bernie. I was born in Iowa and wound up in Los Angeles and found ZCLA and participated when Maizumi Roshi was still alive. I didn't get to know him. And then moved into the center in May. Had a brief encounter with him in the driveway. And he was on his way to the airport to go to Japan, from which he did not return. And then Bernie became the second abbot, and he would come to ZCLA for board meetings, and I was the only one who would go to the airport to pick him up. So he and I would hang out, and we'd stop for coffee somewhere on the way back, good coffee somewhere on the way back. And so that kind of began my connection. And then I remember knowing about Jishu and talking about Jishu with Bernie, and was very interested in the peacemaker work and different things that they were doing. And so at one point, Bernie asked me to come out to Yonkers and help he and Jishu with this creation of the CPO at that point. And so I was around him for a couple of years, and part of the move from Yonkers to Santa Fe. And at one point, Bernie decided that he was not going to take on any kind of newish students and just work on finishing up with the ones that he had. And so he actually asked me, or asked Jishu, and told me that I was now Jishu's student. So we began to work together and began the process towards Denkai, becoming a full priest, and perhaps eventually transmission. And the thing that I noticed about her right away was, and I was just chatting about this with someone else about this kind of style of this way of being, of just kind of reflecting things as they are. There's no judgment or evaluation or anything. It's just kind of saying something, saying, oh, it's like this then. And so it's coming from this place of kind of value neutral, just a way of communicating. And I was very struck by that about Jishu and her kindness and generosity of spirit. And then, her laugh, which was an explosion. It was just really so wonderful. She was always kind of touched by many different things, and how she would just dive into everything, creating CPO and having endless meetings and discussions and things and street retreats and the Pathmaker program, which was a program that she was instrumental in developing to help folks kind of find direction and guidance in their life from many different aspects, kind of all based on the 5 Buddha families and different teachings, and for kind of a person kind of heading towards a certain age, she was indefatigable. She would just keep going from first sit in the morning until lights out at night, and yeah, so I was very struck by that. And for a few years now, I've been the holder of the contents of the Pamsula clothing project that was handed down by Bernie to Roshi Genkoji and his wife Noemi, and they were very interested in reviving that and doing something with that, and it wound up not working for them to do that. And then at one point, Paco handed me this big binder in a box and said, "Here, this is now yours." And so, and actually, within the last few months, I have been inspired to revive that in honor of Jishu. It's something that I'm interested in doing, and but also just as Ken was saying, as a way to inform and inspire people about her, as well as to keep her teaching and her human legacy alive. So I was very honored to have been her student, though it was a brief time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dakian. Thank you very much. Once again, I'll take a risk. Chris, I don't want to put you on the spot. Would you like to share, or?
Sure, I can say something.
It's funny how we say that. I don't want to I don't want to put you on the spot, but then I put you on the spot. So
Then you go ahead. Thank you. It's nice to see everybody. When I moved to New York, Tyken was my second roommate. Very early on, we lived in this abandoned building. And it was really fun. I lived for a while with Bernie and Jishu in their house when I first got to New York. I didn't know Jishu very well before I got to Yonkers. I'd met her, but I spent most of the time prior to my move getting to know Bernie. So, like the day after I got there, I was told that I'd be working for Jishu instead of Bernie. I said, okay, that's great. And, I barely knew her. And we sat down and she looked at me. She said, "You're really not right for this." And I said, okay. And she said, "I need a woman because, I think this is a woman's project and it shouldn't be you helping women. I want it to be women leading women." And I said, "Yeah, I'm not sure what I can do about that, but I can help if you want me to." So then the next time we met, we went into Grayston and we walked into her office, which she had just vacated, and we stood at the doorway. And I was waiting for her to go first, and she wanted me to go first. So I went in, and then I stood inside, and she asked me to sit down in her seat that she just left behind her desk, and she sat on the other side. And it was a really poignant moment, I think, for both of us. She was entrusting her heart work, this thing she loved so much called Pamsula, to somebody who was unknown that turned out to be a man that was supposed to write the business plan and tell a story to Grayston that would get them to support this project. And it was just really lovely that she trusted me. And despite all outward objections, she committed to working with me on this. And she taught me so much in such a short period of time. We had our own sort of karma. She just thought I belonged to Bernie because that's where I'd started somehow. And I think that had something to say about their relationship as well. But interesting things happened all the time. I was trying to help her with her garden, and she got a new rototiller, and it was an inexpensive one. And I pulled the starter cord, and it broke, and she started crying, and that was just these poignant moments with Jishu that I didn't have an answer for. I think I just had this experience with her that was really beautiful, and I really understood that she was in for the struggle. She was committed to whatever was in front of her. And I still probably carry some of that. I try to be the same. So thanks.
thank you, Chris. And for those folks who don't know, Chris Panos is our board chair for Zen Peacemakers, one of the elders of the family, a younger elder. We've got some time. If any of the folks who've spoken already, if anything's bubbled up for you and you'd like to speak again, we can lean into it a little bit and go around again. Barbara, I see your hand all the way from Florida.
Beautiful memories as she progressed. Sandra Holmes had polio as a child, and then Jishu did have a polio incident up there in Yonkers. And she also had a cardiac incident in Yonkers. So she was quite physically vulnerable. But as Dyken has pointed out, she had an inordinate amount of energy to focus on whatever appeared in front of her. That was, it was like completely evident all the time. Anyway, that's what I wanted to put in addition to. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. Any others who've spoken? Ken, please, thank you.
I'm thinking, Peter, about the binary planets. And I'm sorry you didn't come across that, 30 years ago. Because I think it would have been a good story for Jishu to hear. Because Jishu didn't appreciate the binary planet thing. That Jishu thought that she was like the moon. Uh, she didn't realize how much Bernie was revolving around her. So I got two. You brought back two moments for me. Uh, One was the moment when Jishu quit her job at Grayston. I don't know if anybody else remembers that, but she quit. Was like, I can't take this anymore. It's sort of like, I guess, being the founder's wife and all this stuff. It was like some of it was wearing on her, and she quit. And Bernie was horrified, and was determined to convince her to withdraw her resignation. And like you should have health insurance before you quit and things like that. It was, and she had her heels dug in. Bernie thought this was going to take like a major effort on his part to convince her, and they took off for Hawaii, officially to get dental work done by the Shigiokas, but actually to give Bernie time away from Yonkers to convince Jishu to withdraw her resignation. And whatever it was, 2 weeks later, they returned, and Bernie announced that he was quitting too. The other story, they hung around for a while in Yonkers after quitting, and that's when the Peacemaker stuff was getting going. But it became clear to Bernie, and I think to Chuck Leaf as well, who was the president of Grayston, that as long as Bernie was in Yonkers, like all the elected officials would look to him as the head of Grayston. So like if the mayor had a problem, he never called Chuck. He always called Bernie. So Bernie and Jishu reached the conclusion that it was time for them to leave Yonkers. Bernie's first idea was that they would not have any place to call home. They would just travel from place to place. And Jishu wouldn't hear of that, that she needed a home. They could travel all the time. And she was in for that. And they were going to spend their year going to what Jishu was calling peacemaker villages in different parts of the world and use their skills and clout and stuff like that to help things forward. But they needed a home to come back to. So the question was, where are they going to go? And it sort of got narrowed down to Santa Fe and Santa Barbara. Bernie wanted Santa Barbara. Jishu wanted Santa Fe. That was when I did my Shuso Hosen thing, and Jishu stayed at our house that night. And I was going to drive her to the airport. She was going out to meet Bernie in Santa Fe, and she's saying, "Dude, this is purely, we're standing in the driveway before we head out to the airport. And this is like just an exercise. Bernie's made up his mind. We're going to Santa Barbara." And I drove her to the airport. And, like a week later, they're back announcing that they're moving to Santa Fe. Uh, but Jishu had no appreciation really of how strong her influence was on Bernie. In some ways, he was always the teacher. She was always the student. It's like in the Zendo, she always when she would always call him Sensei. At home, she would call him Sensei Honey, which was really sweet. But it was like she was in her mind always the moon.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, Ken.
Peter, go ahead.
Yeah. Um, she was a bigger moon than she thought she was. We all have our neuroses, and she had hers. But she was, in a deep sense, Bernie's second teacher after Maizumi Roshi. She really changed the dude. And it's too bad she didn't realize it, but she did. It's true. But I was going to ask you a question, Ken. You mentioned that she articulated some principles of Zen Peacemaker at the time that kind of got lost. I just was wondering if you remember or can articulate any of those.
Well, I think Adam mentioned the Pathmaker program.
Mm-hmm.
Daikin mentioned the Pathmaker program. The Peacemaker Village was another really important idea. This idea of how they would support practice, which was, to spend time with the village. Like they would, I think the kind of model that they were envisioning is, Daikin's got a little group, something going on, and they want to create this Palm Sula thing. And they don't, how do you do it? And that Bernie and Jishu would show up for 3 months and work with Daikin and the group, use their skills, but also like Bernie's ability to attract attention and support, to bring resources to the project, money, other people, that kind of, and then they would move on. And the idea was when they got tired, they would, head back to Santa Fe and chill out and regroup and then go back on the road, and use their skills to help local practice blossom, wherever it was needed. It's like, I always say, what can we do to get Bernie and Jishu to come to Staten Island? It's just like, because they could make a difference. The Pathmaker program was really important. Got lost. And people struggle all the time without that. So people come and they want to be peacemakers, but they don't know what to do. This thing of how do you find your path is, how do you make a difference in the world? Bernie would say, with the ingredients of your life. How do you actually do it? In each particular case, how does a village, a quotes group, make a difference in their community? She was also into liturgy and stuff like, she was into the priest thing, long after Bernie was disengaging. And one of the last things that she was working on before she passed was developing the Zen Peacemaker liturgical calendar. And she was taking the 4 commitments, of the World Congress of Religions or whatever it was called, and she was basically associating each one with a season. And this is kind of weird that she should die on, her memorial should be on the first day of spring. This is like, how did she work this out? And as far as I know, nobody knows. This is how things are getting lost already. And have been for years. Which season was associated with which of the 4 commitments? And at one point, Eve knew one of them because she knew which seasonal commitment was associated to when she and Bernie got married, but she didn't know what the other 3 were. I don't know if anybody knows.
She was Celtic. She was English, Irish, and Welsh, as I was. And there's Mary Lehane, a successor of Bob Kennedy, is very big in that Celtic world. When I see her in Ireland, I'll bring it up to her. I'd like to point out that if a bunch of you guys are teachers, and as Zen teachers, you should recognize that there's change. And while you gotta be sure that something is of essence that you want to spread about Jishu Bernie, hello, gather your energies, please. And Ken, don't wait a year. You look fragile.
Thanks, Barbara. Thanks, Ken. We are approaching the top of the hour. Unless there's anything else anyone wants to share, perhaps we are kind of coming to a natural close. I'll wait here a part of a minute and to see if anyone else has anything. This has been lovely and instructional, and I think more than a few people on the call today did not know Jishu, perhaps may not have met. So this does help, weave that lineage a little bit as much as we can do.